Good evening, everybody. This is Omni Rusted back with another quick and dirty tutorial for Oxygen Not Included. Today we're going to be looking at the SPOM, which also stands for Self-Powered Oxygen Machine. Now, a SPOM is pretty much one of your first oxygen creators when you actually start the game. Ignore a lot of this stuff around here. I'm basically just going to be concentrating on this part right here. Now, how it works is the electrolyzer. Once you have any source of water coming in, for example, right now I'm just drawing from a large pool of water. It is dirty and clean. It comes in to a water sieve and immediately gives pure water to the electrolyzers. Once the electrolyzers have any water in them, they will output it, mind you, at a very hot temperature. There's a way to see exactly how it gives temperature. Like it basically outputs oxygen at 70 Celsius or hotter if the input materials are hotter. So you need to keep that in mind, but I'm also going to be showing you how to cool this a little bit. Ignore the fact that this one is a little bit damaged. I got a little bit of salt water in there at one point before I put a filter on. But this thing is handled by automation. It's handled by water coming in, and it outputs every single time you put one thing of water into an electrolyzer, it will split it up into H2O, meaning one hydrogen cell and then two oxygen cells, which is why I have one gas pump and two here. Hydrogen is much lighter. If we go into the gas overview here, hydrogen is much lighter than oxygen, so the hydrogen will go up, the oxygen will go down. Now, this is handled by pressure, so electrolyzers will output up until a pressure of about 1800, and then they will stop. Hey, Editing Omni here. Just needed to mention that before you get this started, you need to vacuum it first. And that is, of course, the pressure around them. I have this built so the oxygen will float down. This sensor here is set to about 500, and the hydrogen will float up. And what I've done here, by having this one tile here, is I've basically made it into a gas lock. Only hydrogen will go up there because hydrogen is the lightest gas, and so this one is set to 150 because it often gets way more than is needed. And this will, at that point, and now this is one of the very important things on the self-powering part, the SP of the SPOM. The oxygen will go out, and you can put that oxygen into anywhere. You can throw it into your base, you can put it into Atmos suits, whatever you'd like to do. The hydrogen, you send in a radiant gas pipe going around your entire thing, and it will try and absorb as much heat as it can from the granite tiles. Remember, granite, I said, has a thermal conductivity that is much higher than sedimentary rock or obsidian. It will go around, it will absorb as much heat as possible before it goes into your, admittedly, in my case, ridiculous gas pipes here. But what you do is you put it primarily, after it's absorbed as much heat as possible. I put mine into a gas reservoir first, so that there's no real overflow. And then it'll go right into your hydrogen generator. The hydrogen generator will burn up all of that hydrogen that you send it, and will also burn all the heat off that you've gathered up from your radiant gas pipes going around here. Now, the hydrogen sensor, I've got the hydrogen generator, I've got hooked up to a smart battery set to about 20% here on an automation. It will make it so that this hydrogen generator will only produce up to 95 on the threshold. You put it to 95 and not to 100 so that it doesn't waste a little bit over whatever power you might be inputting into it. And then at 20%, it will turn on again. So it turns off at 95, turns on, i.e. sends a green signal at 20%. It'll send a green signal to the hydrogen generator to start generating again once the battery has reached 20%. I put it at 20% just as a safety measure. After that, you've got it hooked up here to the smart battery. The smart battery will keep things charged, and that goes right back into the system. This, of course, can handle way more. It's 800 watts going into 240, 120, 120, 240, 240, and I have it hooked up to the water sieve because the water sieve does not run all the time. None of these run all the time, so you don't really have to worry about using regular wire on this. So that is a small self-powered oxygen machine. I've got mine set up to also send hydrogen out to a canister filler, because occasionally I like to set up these little Wheezewort farms. I should also cover the Wheezewort farm while I'm at it. The Wheezewort farm basically will cool down everything around it as long as the Wheezeworts are getting phosphorite, and you can put either seeds or phosphorite into the bottom of these, making a closed section. I've got lead tip shift plates because lead is very prevalent and has a 35 conductivity. It's not as good as diamond at 80 or even iron at 60, but it's good enough, and this will keep things a little bit cooler here if you have the Wheezeworts, and if you have, of course, your phosphorite that you can have your farmers put into the bottom. Phosphorite lasts for a heck of a long time in these Wheezeworts, and they barely ever need upkeep to get some easy cooling. It isn't a permanent solution. They do not cool things down very fast, and they do take 4,000 grams a cycle, which is 4 kilograms a cycle of phosphorite, but I got a pretty big Dreco farm that I'm using to supply phosphorite there. So that is the smaller kind of SPOM you can get. I've got mine so that any excess hydrogen will, of course, go out and go to an AETN to cool things down on other things, or go to another hydrogen generator in case the power gets a little bit lower, just to burn off a little bit of excess hydrogen so you don't get a backup. One thing you want to really avoid in these is a backup. You can see that my oxygen here is actually getting backed up, which means that the gas pumps here won't turn on, which means oxygen will start to fill this up too much, because the oxygen won't be pumped out, and it will eventually get up here and start filling up the hydrogen area. You can easily take care of that by sending hydrogen off into other parts of your base, filling up gas reservoirs, or just making sure that it's like outputting to a place where you want some oxygen, into Atmo suit docks, whatever you like. So there's the small one. Let's go ahead and show off my Dreco farm here a little bit. I've got wild mealwood constantly growing. As long as it's cool enough to grow, it will produce you the phosphorite that you need, of course, for that little farm for your Wheezeworts. I'm also going to show off up here is the bigger version of the SPOM, which I like to use a lot when I start to get to space, or when you need a lot of oxygen coming in, or a lot of hydrogen going out as well. It's basically the same kind of setup. It just requires a little bit different of automation. This one I have fed by a cool steam vent. The water is coming in at 96.3, mind you, so it's going to be higher than that. The temperature will always be higher than that. You need to make sure that no matter what, you have a cooling loop for hydrogen around your SPOM setup. Also, you need something else to cool it, like an AETN. That makes it so that all the oxygen coming out is going to be nice and cool. It won't last forever. You need to make sure you have some kind of cooling setup. So this one is a little bit different because I've got the hydrogen going not in a cooling loop. I've got it in a different cooling loop here, which goes to hydrogen generators up above, because I'm producing a heck of a lot more hydrogen. I've got up to 4 electrolyzers, so that's 4 hydrogen cells being created, and 8 oxygen being created at a time. I've got the gas pumps, 4 of them, all outputting the same one, so it actually fills up to 1,000, because gas pumps only get about 500 grams of a gas at a time. These will join up here to get to up to 1,000. They won't all run at the same time, but that is okay. And on this one, I've got it so it's 500. Whenever it's above 500, the hydrogen generators, the hydrogen pumps will start. This one down here up to 1,000, so I've just doubled the numbers that were down below because I doubled the size of the SPOM itself. This one feeds 2 hydrogen generators into a battery because we're using so much more power here. And it is set up to a large power transformer, which I'm going to explain in another video, which is connected to regular conductive wire. This one I just made out of lead. It can stand the melting point. It will never get to the melting point for lead, and lead is great for that. And any excess hydrogen is either sent off to power generators or, of course, the AETN. Now, the AETNs, I have up to a thermosensor with a gas shutoff. So whenever the temperature gets above 5 on these, depending on how chilly you want your oxygen, which is going to be circulating, it will turn on the gas shutoff, which will send in more hydrogen like you see there to keep the AETN running. The AETN, the anti-entropy thermal nullifier, does not take up much hydrogen, just 10 grams per second. And considering that every single time these two things run, you're getting 1,000 grams per second, it's good enough. So that is your SPOM, both big and small versions. You can set this up pretty much well, not infinitely size, but as long as you have enough water coming in for your electrolyzers, as long as you've got a good cooling loop going. Of course, I've got this hooked up to the AET and along with the oxygen up there to make sure that keeps cool. As long as you got that set up, you got your cooling, you got your air, you got tons of oxygen going into your base, you got tons of oxygen going into wherever you might need it. It will fill things up, and it will be glorious. I've been Omni Rusted. You've been awesome. And I'll see you guys next time.